Hi everyone, Robin here to show you my method I call endless overlay. It's Overlay Mosaic Crochet with no ends, and it's worked on the right side of the work and the wrong side of the work. This is the first time I've ever done a video like this, so if you guys have suggestions on how I could improve this one, please do let me know. Don't hesitate. So as I said, you work on the right side and the wrong side, and one of the things that you'll need to get used to and remember to do is to read your pattern for your wrong side rows from left to right instead of right to left. So rows 3 and 4, 7 and 8, and so on are worked from reading your pattern left to right. You don't need special patterns. Any overlay mosaic pattern will work with this method. So we're just going to do a couple rows here so I can show you how to do the unique stitches. The first one, for the right side rows, everything is exactly the same as you would normally do in an overlay mosaic. The only thing that I do differently is I do a special single crochet for my ending border stitch. The beginning border stitch is the same, both the right side and the wrong side. It's just the end stitch, so the last stitch in the row. Rather than working the V from the top, underneath that V on the top like this, like you normally would, I work the side V. So you turn your work and you find this V on the side here. You go through that post and through this back post here. If you do Tunisian crochet, that'll look real familiar to you. Hopefully you can see that well enough. When you're doing endless overlay, you want to keep your tails to the wrong side of the work. It's especially important when you're doing the wrong side. So when we get to that end, I'll show you exactly what I mean. To carry your yarn, you take this from your, this would be, if you were just starting, this would be your first row, your A color, and this is your B color. So this is the end of row 2. So you take your A color. I always pull it through first so I don't forget. And snug it, not too tight, just so that your hook is still even with your row. You don't want it too tight or too loose. You want it just right. Yarn over, chain, and turn. Now keep in mind right here, this is your working yarn right here. So when you're doing that first border stitch, you want to make sure you're doing it into the right stitch. I've made the mistake a couple times of doing it here. Make sure you're in that first border stitch in the right spot. The first stitch on this is the double crochet, so I'm going to show you that one first. You look behind your work. If you've ever done thermal stitch in regular crochet, that is when I had my aha moment. Way back when I learned to do the thermal stitch, I said, geez, I could apply this to mosaic crochet and not have to do any ends, borders, cutting, etc., weaving. I've never done a graphgan, but that's how much I hate ends. So here we start with the double in this one. You work behind you on the right side. All the double crochets are worked into the right side. So for the when you're working the wrong side rows, you have to kind of lean it towards you. Find that top loop. Now when you're working a double crochet from the right side, normally you'd go up through that loop, from the bottom to the top. But from the wrong side, we're doing the top down. Now when you do from the right side work, you're still doing it from the bottom up. It's just when you're doing the wrong side rows. So yarn over, go through, pull up your loop, just like a regular double crochet. The single crochets are done in the front loop, which is really just the back loop when you're looking at it from the right side. Double crochet into your top loop. Remember, over and then down and through. I really like working the double crochets on the wrong side better than I like working them on the right side. Easier and faster once you get used to them. I did a lot of thermal stitches back in the day. And that's it. You just work your pattern. Again, here we are. This is the end border stitch. Turn your work. This side it's a lot easier because there's no tail to contend with. Just find that V and work under it. Make sure you're only picking up 2 loops, 2 posts. I want to make sure that this is not being picked up. See that one right there? Now, this is what mine looks like. Keep in mind that if you chain and turn, and you turn your work counterclockwise or different than I do, or you turn and then chain your work, that'll also cause it to look a little bit different. So just get used to what yours looks like when you chain and turn, or turn and chain, as the case may be. All right, so that's our A color from our first wrong side row. We're going to do our second wrong side row. Now to pick up this yarn, just tug on that working yarn we left there. Again, just keep it level with the row. Do your border stitch, single crochet, single crochet, a double. Go slow for that one again. Yarn over, top to bottom. Careful when you're working the wrong side row with the B color. So we're working the B color. The loops are in a little bit of different spot when they are when you're working your A color, because you're working into the B color from the row before, which was worked in the opposite direction. Just pay close attention, especially when you're working with darker colored yarns. I've been doing this a long time and I still have to pay close attention to this sometimes, especially while I work a lot in thread and I do a lot of mosaic in thread. So if you're having a hard time, a little trick that I do is just put the hook through all the way and pull it back like that, and it'll help you find your front loops easier. The double crochet, I hope you guys can see that okay. So the last double, I'll go really slow. So you're just going to look behind your work, go top down into that double crochet. And here we are at the end again, so it's time to do an end border stitch. Turn, find your V, mind your tails. Just remember, pull this one up. Make sure this is out of your way when you're doing that too. Before you pull this through, you want to mind your tail, make sure it's in front. All tails towards the wrong side. It really only applies mostly for the B color. Again, when you turn your work, we're ready to work on the right side. You're going to not go into that working yarn. You're going to go into your border stitch. Just mind that. And that's really all there is to it. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I hope that you really enjoy this method. One thing I do want to mention. Sometimes your work gets wonky like this. I have a tendency to pull my stitches a little too much. But if you can pull it like this and get a nice square, you're fine. If not, check out the golden loop on your favorite internet browser. It might, if you've never heard of it, if you know what it is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, check it out. It might help you across all of your crochet, with your tension, with your stitch tightness, looseness, height, width. Well, not width so much as height. I highly recommend checking out the golden loop, and don't forget to mind your tails. Have fun.